Hey there, Work, Love, Pray listeners. Before we get started today, I wanted to invite you again to join us in supporting women in the workplace during Forward's Giving Week next week, September 20th through the 24th. This month, Forward turns 10 and begins a whole new decade of ministry to women in the workplace, in which we plan to empower 10 million women to integrate faith and work so they can become the world changers God intends them to be. If you'd like to support our mission and help us begin our journey to reach those 10 million women or more, you can donate by texting GIVE21 to 95577, or you can give through our website, forwardwomen.org. We hope you can help support the work of inviting every Forward woman to be part of what God is going to do in the next 10 years. Welcome back to Work, Love, Pray, Real Talk Grounded in Truth. I'm Jordan Johnstone. Well, as you heard me mention a few moments ago, Forward is turning 10 this month on September 19th, to be exact. And when we stop to think about everything that we've been able to learn about and share with our Forward audience, it's truly mind-boggling and humbling. We do not at all take lightly the ways that God has divinely used us in the lives of our women. And after 10 years and hundreds of mentor pairings, community group meetings, interview blogs, and a whole lot more, some of the top things that our audience continues to need support on are balance and boundaries. So this month, as we talk about redefining wellness over on the Forward blog and on this podcast, we want to highlight these two vital components of finding whole self wellness. Joining me today is someone who is no stranger to the importance of finding balance and setting up some solid boundaries. Elizabeth Knox is the founder of MatchPace, an organizational effectiveness company that helps teams work well and live well. She empowers teams to work effectively by helping them learn how to create space for collaboration and synergy and to minimize the mess of a typical workday so they can do the deep work that supports the mission of the organization and ensures people have time for their other priorities. Elizabeth writes, speaks, consults, and coaches on the importance of working in a way that prioritizes humanity. Her writing has been featured in HuffPost, Thrive Global, and Today's Parents. Her first book, Faith-Powered Profession, A Woman's Guide to Living with Faith and Values in the Workplace, was published in 2013 and helps women grasp the importance and power of their professional work. She has a new book coming out on September 30th called Work Reimagined that we will talk about later. That will also be a very vital tool to any of you looking to bring a little sanity back to how you work. Elizabeth lives in Washington, D.C. with her husband and her 4 elementary school-aged children. She is a longtime friend of Forward, and we love to have her on the podcast and the blog whenever we can. So, Elizabeth, thank you for being here today.
Jordan, thanks so much for having me, and happy birthday to Forward. I don't think I realized then, so we all share September birthdays. MatchPace's birthday is in September, Forward's birthday is in September, awesome. And my birthday is in September. It's September 30th, the day the book is coming out, which is also MatchPace's birthday.
Should have sent you a cake.
We got time.
There you go. Yeah. So, like I said, you are a mom to 4, you live in DC, you run your own company. So I have a feeling balance and boundaries are something that you have probably had to think about. But I would love to know, you critique yourself. How good would you say that you are at prioritizing or achieving whole self-wellness? And are there maybe certain things that you make a point to do every week to help get there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, this idea of whole self-wellness, it's a little bit of the idea behind the MatchPace of that we are holistic people. So we are we're combinations of our physical wellness, our emotional wellness, our spiritual wellness, our relational wellness, our professional wellness, all of these wellnesses rolled into one. And generally, while I would say that you should prioritize, because I don't think we can do it all or we can't do it all at once, I do, within reason, realize like that's not what we're talking about. A holistic life is where you're striking a balance in all of these areas and not letting one area or another fall too far behind. And so how good am I at it? I would say what I'm good at is being aware of how I'm doing in each of those areas or all of those areas combined. And I'm good at acknowledging that I can't prioritize everything and accepting the trade-offs.
Mm.
So for example, this past year and a half when my kids have largely been doing remote schooling and we haven't had a ton of childcare, I've known I've needed to deprioritize other things, and I've
Yeah.
accepted the costs of those things. I
Yeah.
think that we all think we'll achieve balance at some point, when in reality, it's this constant evaluation, reevaluation, shifting, and rebalancing that will get us the wellness that we want.
Yeah.
And then am I making a point of doing certain things regularly? I have some daily practices that I get to 3 to 4 times a week. I joke with my dentist. I used to say I floss twice a year before I come to see you, but now, I floss 3 to 4 times a week.
There you
It's
go.
it's an effort towards it. And so I have other daily practices, not just my dental hygiene, but prayer, journaling, some gentle movement.
Hmm.
And then, some other regular practices have taken a pause, during the past
Hmm.
year and a half, or even the past
Yeah.
8 years, 9 years when I've been having children. And I feel like where I am now is having a perspective that I didn't have before, that I'm on
Hmm.
a long journey. By the
Yeah.
grace of God, I will be on a long journey. And there are some things that fade away and some things that reemerge, and giving myself grace to recognize it's part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always good to do that. We all need a little grace.
Yeah.
Well, and I know I'm not sharing anything we all don't already know, but I would say that the pandemic, and you kind of touched on this, it's definitely added a whole other layer of, let's just say, muck that we all kind of have to push through to get to that ultimate level of wellness. So, you have 4 kids, like you said. You had to deal with, how do I care for them and also do what I would like to do? How did you deal with that personally?
So my big thing is deprioritizing. Um,
Mm.
and so I think we all probably remember March of 2020, 2 weeks, flatten the curve. And, I can say, I had a feeling it would be longer than that,
Yeah.
but I didn't know it would be this long.
Yeah.
um,
Did any of
and
us?
yeah. Oh. Um, but so I kind of asked myself, for this next time, and mentally at that point, I said, till the summer, if I could only do 5 things, what would they be? If I could only do 4 things, what would they be? If I could only
Mhm.
do 3, to just get really clear of this is the first thing I'm going to prioritize. This is the second thing I'm going to prioritize. And that means that even that number 4 and number 5 are deprioritized compared to number 1 and number 2. Um, for example, we are very fortunate to have 4 developmentally normal, physically healthy children. And so
Mhm.
knowing my circumstances, I deprioritized academics.
Mm.
We didn't make it to all the Zoom calls. I have 4 children. That was a lot of Zoom calls.
Yeah.
And if the kids wanted to paint or play outside, we went with that. And I
Mhm.
believe that I took some stress away from my life by intentionally choosing to focus on life skills and character development and
Yeah.
deprioritize academics.
Yeah.
I deprioritized nutrition. um, we're still
I
on a
think we all probably did that.
we're still on a relatively steady diet of a bread product plus cheese. It's
Yeah.
quesadillas, mac and
Oh, yeah.
cheese.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I acknowledge that cooking every night would be stressful for me and my husband. And so
Right.
we've opted
Yeah.
out of that. And so that's how I think we have made it through this past year and a half, was by deprioritizing things that weren't as important and
Mhm.
acknowledging that they come with a cost and accepting that cost.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good for you. And it seems like we always hear that balance and priorities and boundaries are good for you. But what I'm curious about is why? What specific benefits can they bring to the table?
Mhm. So I think people always say time is your most valuable resource, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And I actually think your attention is your most valuable resource.
Hmm.
And I don't know if, you've had the experience of, theoretically you're not working, but you check your email
Oh,
because
yeah.
your fingers scroll, just so
Yeah.
easily. And then, you're distracted for the rest of the night thinking about some
Yeah.
email that came in that really doesn't need your attention till the next day, but it takes so much of your attention that night.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I think boundaries and balance are about prioritizing your attention and, being responsible for what is yours to do and what is not yours to do, and being clear on that. I think it's I'm going to misquote the person, so I won't even do it, but um, it's someone who says, like, basically it's what's mine to do and what's not mine to do, what's mine to care about, what's not mine to care
Yeah.
about. I think it's Susan Stabile, who's an Enneagram, like someone who's very present in the Enneagram community.
Yeah.
And part of that is just knowing, and then that gives you your attention towards the things that are most important. Because I will often say to clients, hey, it sounds like you have a lot, going on here. Everybody has a lot going on. You're going to drop a ball.
Yeah.
Why don't you choose which ball you drop? Which one do you think is okay to let bounce, or it may break, but otherwise a ball that you don't want to drop is going to maybe the one that drops. And so, I think that's where boundaries and balance are an acknowledgement of there are more things asking for your attention than you can reasonably give your attention to. And so how do you want to choose what gets your attention?
So it's getting a little bit of control back in your day.
Yeah.
Well, I am excited to talk about this because, like I said, I think it's going to be a huge tool for anybody who's listening right now. But you have a new book that is coming out on September 30th called Work Reimagined. And the main drive behind the entire book, I feel like, is the discussion around how the power of pace can help an organization achieve a new level of focus, engagement, and satisfaction. Which who doesn't want that? So I would love to know how did you land on the focus for this book, and is it coming from like a personal perspective?
So I don't know if you've ever heard of Nadia Bolz-Weber. She's like known as the sarcastic Lutheran. So she's a Lutheran minister,
and find her
now. She uses what we in our family call adult words or grown-up words. So be aware that if you find it, that
I'll be fine.
You are an adult. You are an adult, as I assume most people listening to this podcast.
Yes.
But she's talking about grace and mercy and compassion. But on her website, she says, the reason she's focused on those things is not because they come naturally to me, but because I am in desperate need of them. And I think that that's a beautiful way to say that that's also what's behind MatchPace and Work Reimagined. I think, I myself was tired of platitudes about boundaries and work-life balance. And we know how hard it is to achieve those things as working women. And so it's not this, trying to carve out 1 hour to get a massage, which is what people often, self-care is way. I like that you guys are using the term self-wellness as opposed to self-care, because self-care, I don't think it should be, but it's taken this fluffy interpretation. And, for those of us who have, considerable responsibilities at work and at home, or at work and at home, it's really hard, and it's like 1 hour is not going to make me feel that much better. Like, it'll be nice, but it's, and by the way,
and a part of that too is, I think self-care, we've started to incorrectly call things self-care. Like you're a mom, so you're going to understand this, but like I follow, because I have a 1-year-old. So very not in the so distant past, I was pregnant. And so I follow all these like mommy Instagrammers. And so like this huge thing going on right now is like, self-care is not taking a shower. Like that's a necessity of life. Like that's not self-care. So I agree, self-wellness is a better way to think about it. Because there is a difference.
Right. There is a very big difference. Yes. Yeah. And even those things, like we're saying, that's hygiene. That's not that's not self-care.
Right.
That's not some, gift you're giving yourself.
Right.
But I think, as women, so what we're saying is that self-care isn't the solution, or, even kind of piecemeal things, but really the solution is a sustainable pace. And we know that life requires different paces in work and family life. Sometimes we have to all out sprint. Sometimes we're in a comfortable pace. Sometimes we get to take a chance to sometimes we get a chance to take a break and truly rest. But I think too many of us are trying to sustain a sprint in too many areas of our lives for too long. And so this leads to burnout. And so over the long term, we find that a sustainable pace supports whole self-wellness, so we don't crash and burn. And so organizations have a lot of power to help people either work well and live well, or create environments where burnout, stress, and overwhelm are the norm. And so, what we do at MatchPace is help organizations think about not just wellness perks. I mean, like we're all past the ping pong tables, which I actually adore ping pong and wish I had access to a ping pong table. But, we're not talking about perks, but it's no longer, it's now like, how can you like exist in an organization that works at a sustainable pace? And that absolutely came out of a place of, like Nadia Boltz-Weber was saying, my need. I was in need of a job that afforded me the opportunity to use my professional skills to make the world a better place and to be available for my other priorities. So I'm seeking to create that. I'm seeking to create that at MatchPace, but also to help other organizations create that. I'm seeking to help them be really clear on their priorities, deprioritize things that aren't important. Make sure people know boundaries, what are theirs to do and what's not theirs to do. And so that's what we do at MatchPace. And then that's what the book is about. And Katie Butler, who you know well and is also a forward woman, she and I co-wrote it, and we took the frameworks and the approaches that we use with companies and put them into book form so people can apply it to their lives and their organizations.
So is this a book that an individual should read, or is it something maybe that a whole team should work through together?
I would love to see a whole team work through it together. Okay. And we actually have some bulk order options that if you, like order it with your team of 20 or more people, I'll come do a conversation with you about the things. Awesome. Because I really do think it's great if you as an individual have boundaries, but if you work in an organization that doesn't respect boundaries or doesn't honor boundaries, it's really hard. So we're trying to help organizations know what their top priorities are, know how to organize people to put their best skills on it, know how to develop a deep sense of honesty and trust so that people know that when people say something, they're going to do something, they're going to do it. Or that when, you don't need to check email at night, but your boss is emailing you at 11 o'clock. What does that mean? And so the book can walk an organization or a team through that. And that's really who we're targeted at, because productivity gurus can give you a couple minutes back of your time. But if you're not working in an organization that can sustain that, it's really hard for you to do that individually.
Yeah. Well, and I think that goes in with the quote that I want to share. So when I was reading the book, this honestly stood up off the page and smacked me in the face. So of course I want to share it, if that's okay. So this is the chapter titled Reimagining the Workday. And in it, you wrote, at the core of our work is attention. It's not time management or energy hacks. It's realizing that what gets most of our attention during the day often isn't what you need to be doing to achieve your goals and objectives. This leaves you overworked, burned out, and feeling like you're never caught up. And that right there is why boundaries and balance are so important. And, post-pandemic, I feel like we have all had this come to Jesus moment, and realized that work and the way we've known it has changed. And now we need to change as well. And, I'm just curious, writing that, did you have a moment like that where you just kind of were like, oh man?
I have those moments every day. Like I said, I do this because I have this great need, right? I watch myself. So we have some stats in the book. The average person works, 47 hours in a knowledge economy. The average person works 47 hours a week. Of those 47 hours, 11 and a half of them are actually productive. So it's we take 12 hours of work and spread it out over 47 hours. And I am the same thing. I have 17 tabs open up there, where I'm trying to, buy our old neighbors, our neighbors are getting married. And so I'm trying to buy them a wedding present, and I'm trying to, what else am I trying to do? Get pictures of my kids from swim team. And, and by the way, bid on a large proposal. And so I watch myself and my attention get fractured and splintered. And so every day I literally try to have come to Jesus moments. And I literally try to remind myself, what are the most important things I need to do today? What are the most important things that my organization needs to get done today, so that we get those things done? And then I try really hard, because we were talking about earlier, your fingers just itch for your phone, to go look at it. But I really try to have blackout times where I put my phone on do not disturb, and I am just with my family. And, there are different techniques that I bring into my life, because because that's my life. And I see that life reflected in so many people that I talk to, so many of my friends, so many of my clients, so many of people who send me random emails saying like, what do I do about this? And so, I know that that's the way that we're all living, and we want to live differently. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned having email on your phone. I actually intentionally have not put email on my phone. So that's how I have kept cause I'm that way, where if I see an email and maybe it comes at, 6:30, 7:00, I'm like, it'll take me 2 seconds to reply to it. It's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. I mean, even if it doesn't seem like it, you're sending a message that, you don't have boundaries, you don't have balance really. So that's how I get myself out of that.
So then you don't take your attention away at 6:30 or 7 at night. Right. And also when you do change focus, it takes 15 minutes to regain your attention. So if you were doing something, even for all of us professionally, that's why I like shut off pop-ups on my computer, and the only thing that's allowed is calendar pop-ups, but nothing else pops up, because every time your face looks, your eyes look, like it could potentially take you 15 minutes to regain your attention, which is a huge cost.
Wow. Yeah.
That you're not focused on the thing that you're supposed to be getting done.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I have another quote from Work Reimagined that I love, and I think it brings up another element, let's say, to our balance and boundaries conversation. And it's, without a why, you'll find it easier to quit when the going gets tough. And at Forward, we recognize that our why should be centered around our faith. So, I mean, in your life, I would love to hear what has worked to help you integrate your faith into your typical workday.
I think it is the constant conversation with God. That even just now, I was like, God, please give me the right words, to say. This wasn't a question. It was like, I hadn't planned a response to this question. And I was like, God, give me the words. I was like, oh, how about it's that all day long? I'm like, God, give me the words, God, when I'm in a coaching session with someone and I don't feel like we're getting to the right place, I'm just like, Holy Spirit, please, give me the right question to ask this person to unlock the thing that is keeping them, in this mindset or this, frame of mind. And so I think for me, it's probably the constant conversation with God. And there's a Quaker, I know it from the Quaker tradition. I don't know if it originated there, but there's a phrase there of, I'll hold you in the light. And I believe it kind of means I'll pray for you, or what I have done instead is, because sometimes my I'll pray for yous were a little bit vacant. I didn't actually pray for a person. I was just like, oh yeah, I'll pray for you, and didn't. Right. And so instead it's a conscious moment, thinking of that person, holding them in the light, saying, and in my mind, that's a communication with God saying please, be present in their life. No, you know what they're struggling with, where they are, and I don't have to feel like I have to spend 45 seconds coming up with the right words. It's just God, you brought this person to mind. I'm lifting this person back up to you, holding them in the light. And so those are the two things that I do regularly to integrate my faith with my workday.
I love that. Well, if we've talked about Work Imagined and you want to check it out, Elizabeth has actually been kind enough to give us 2 copies to give away. So if you'd like a chance to win a copy, just head over to Forward's Facebook and our Instagram profiles and share the giveaway posts that are there with your followers. And if you share on Facebook and on Instagram, you actually have double the chance of winning. So go share, go post on your stories, and good luck. And you will not regret putting in the 2 seconds of work to share it, because it's a great book. Well, let's bring this conversation full circle. For someone who is looking to achieve whole self-wellness and they have completely identified they need to add in boundaries, they need to find ways to balance, or a way that we like to say around here is find integration. I would love to know, what are 3 things that you would advise them to do?
So this feels like a little bit of a cheat. For 2 reasons. One, it's actually one thing, but it has 3 steps. So that's going to be, and then I've shared it on either a blog or a podcast with you guys before, but we have a framework called Prioritize, Minimize, and Delegate. And that's really what I would say. I think it was a blog because I remember writing the answers to the questions with you last summer, I think. But it's an exercise that we have on our resources page of our website. But really, it's just, you need to prioritize. Like, you need to know what's most important, because we all have so many things asking for our attention all day. And so if you're not clear on your own values, if you're not clear on your own priorities, it's really hard to sift through those things. And then even when you have your priorities, there's going to be more that needs to be done than you can probably do. Well, that's the third step. Minimize is cut some things off of that list. So like I said, deprioritize, like intentionally say, I am not going to worry about academics with my kids this year. Like, I had, the privilege and the children to be able to say that, but I intentionally cut things off of the priority list. Like, of course, academics are on our priority list. Like, I want my children to learn and grow, but for that time, I cut it off my list. And then the third is delegating, which is, there are going to be more things than you can do. And so my children fold our laundry. I have delegated that. There are things that I delegate. You and I had a conversation earlier about some things that we've tried at MatchPace and we haven't been able to do. And I didn't have anybody to delegate it to. So I, minimized it, but I would still like to do it, but I have to figure out a way to delegate it to somebody, and so
right.
So it's just this kind of, again, it's a general repetitive, constant reshuffling, but know your priorities, take things off your list that aren't important, and then delegate what remains on your list as important, but you can't do yourself. That's it.
I love that. Simple, nice and simple. That's what everybody likes. All right. So my last question, it's become kind of a tradition or a routine maybe, but this sounds boring to say routine, but I always ask everybody who's on here this question. And it is, if you could only say one thing to a woman in the workplace today, what would it be?
That's a really good question. And I would say, be still and listen. Listen to yourself, listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit inside of you, listen to those that you love the most. And when you prioritize those voices, you'll naturally deprioritize the voices who are outside, who are louder and seem stronger. Social media, someone whose career is a few steps ahead of yours, someone, who you think you want to do it their way to get to the outcome that they got to. And so that's what I would say. Be still and listen. And by that, I mean yourself, the Holy Spirit, and the people who love you the most.
Thanks so much for joining me for this conversation with Elizabeth. For more information about today's episode, just go to forwardwomen.org/Elizabeth. That's the number 4, WORDWOMEN.org/ELIZABETH. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to Work, Love, Pray on your favorite listening platform and leave a review. Your review will help more people discover Work, Love, Pray, so your feedback is greatly appreciated. As you move forward on your journey to work, love, and pray well, don't forget to make time for real talk grounded in truth.